Hi everybody, this is Mackie. I wanted to talk about how it is being raised as a Jehovah's Witness child compared to being raised a normal child that has lived a normal childhood. Okay, so when my parents started studying, one of my parents stopped, and the other one kept going and eventually got baptized. And so after they got baptized, uh, they went gung ho. I mean, like no Disney movies, no birthdays, no holidays, nothing like that. And that could be kind of a struggle for a child, starting school. I mean, I was in kindergarten, and that's the last that I ever celebrated any holiday or birthday because after my mother and father started studying, um, that's when she started. It was around first grade when they started, and that's when they stopped, put a halt to everything. No Christmas, no Halloween, no birthday parties, none of that. And they made sure to tell the teachers about it. And then not only that, if you had family members, if you had cousins, that were your age or something that wanted you to, hey, why don't you come to my birthday party? Or, hey, why don't you come to my Christmas party or Halloween party? Or, hey, why don't you come to Thanksgiving? Well, you know, your parents are going to be like, no, they're not going to go to these parties. So you're pretty much missing out on those parties with your non-Jehovah's Witness family. Now, I don't know if these parents that weren't raised Jehovah's Witnesses, but later on in life decided to become a Jehovah's Witness and started raising their children as Jehovah's Witnesses. I don't know if they're quite taking into consideration. They really don't understand what it was like to be a Jehovah's Witness child because they grew up, in a normal environment, for the most part. Um, my parents, my mom and my dad, they were not Jehovah's Witnesses as children. So they had birthday parties. They went to their family members' birthday parties. They went to Halloween parties. They had their own birthday parties and things like that. So they really didn't miss out on anything. They even went to the military and things like that. Played sports, went to college, and all of that. So they lived their life. They accomplished a lot more than what a Jehovah's Witness child could accomplish, or what a Jehovah's Witness child was allowed to do, which isn't much. Um, what Jehovah's Witness children are allowed to do, though, this is what Jehovah's Witness parents do. They replace a lot of those type of parties for quote unquote costume parties, quote unquote gift exchange parties, and things like that. And they do this to make the kids feel like they're not quite missing, they're not missing out on anything. So that's what they do, and they try to do it not on the holiday season. They try to maybe do it maybe during the spring, like so say there's Halloween is in October, you know they'll have costume parties probably like in April or something like that. Christmas is usually in December, you know and what Jehovah's Witnesses will do is they will do gift exchange parties maybe like in June. It's as far away from the holiday season as possible. And when I was a kid, yes, I did go to these. But they just, I don't know, it just didn't seem, still seemed a little awkward. My parents didn't have to go, to the principal's office. They didn't have to sit in a corner and read watchtowers and magazines while everyone else gets to eat cake and, ice cream or Halloween candy or Valentine's Day candy. Oftentimes I would go to the principal's office and wait for the party to be done, and then I would go back. That's just like, oh my goodness, it's just the worst. That was just the worst for me. As somebody that's 6-year-old, that's quite detrimental. But as the years went by, I pretty much had no choice but to get used to it. But it still kind of sucked, and not to mention, there always used to be this boy that used to just pick on me for being, a Jehovah's Witness. He would call me a church girl all the time. My parents and my husband's parents, they didn't grow up in the truth either. They didn't have to deal with all of that. They didn't have to deal with the bullying. They didn't have to deal with not being able to go to birthday parties. They didn't have that problem. They did whatever they wanted to do. So how could they possibly understand what their Jehovah's Witness born in, or basically born in? I was like pretty much freaking 5 years old when she started studying. I really can't remember any parties other than we went to Disney World when I was like maybe 3 or 4 years old. And of course, family did oppose. And what the watchtower does to your brain is just pure abuse. Child abuse and adult abuse, if you ask me. They make you think that everybody that's not a Jehovah's Witness is going to die in Armageddon. So don't associate with anybody that's not a Jehovah's Witness unless you plan on preaching to them and trying to convert them to be a Jehovah's Witness. Oh, and dating was out of the question. You can't even have sex until you get married. And see, that's another thing. My parents didn't have to go by those strict rules. My husband's parents didn't have to go by those strict rules. So, I mean, they lived their adulthood, their childhood and young adolescenthood without too many restrictions. They did go to church, but it wasn't, it wasn't a cult, like Jehovah's Witness religion is. And they didn't come into the truth until they were in their like mid-30s. So by then they had already been there and done that and did everything. So they figured, well, we let's get baptized and become Jehovah's Witnesses. We done already celebrated birthdays. We done already did this and that and the other. We're not missing out on anything anymore. They don't want to be quote unquote part of the world anymore. They want to, study the Bible and study Watchtower doctrine and, hurry up and get baptized before the end of the world happens. And then, they want to raise their children not to do nothing, but go out and field service, study this and that and the other, go to meetings that as a child are so boring. When I was a kid, I hated Bible study. I hated book study. I hated going to the Kingdom Hall. I hated going out and field service because, you run into schoolmates in your territory. It was so bad for me, I did not even want to go out of service in my own territory. I wanted to go to another, congregation's territory with another Jehovah's Witness friend, just so that I could avoid my territory where my schoolmates lived. That's how embarrassed I was to admit to people that I was a Jehovah's Witness. Because when I was a young teenager, I didn't feel like dealing with the drama of being bullied by the other kids, and like I said, My parents, who weren't witnesses growing up, didn't have to deal with that. Yeah, they dealt with, bullies and things like that, but it wasn't for religious reasons, and they didn't have to deal with the awkwardness of going out and field service and running into people that they may know in school. They did not have to go through any of this stuff, so becoming a Jehovah's Witness for them, getting baptized, learning something new that they've never learned before, and it sounds good to them. Everlasting life, oh yeah, that sounds good. Dead ones becoming resurrected, oh yeah, that sounded good to them. So, hey, they fell for it and got baptized. So, where I'm getting at is they don't understand. They will never understand what it's like being a Jehovah's Witness child. Okay, being a Jehovah's Witness adult is one thing. Becoming a Jehovah's Witness as an adult, okay, you're an adult. You're allowed to make your own decisions. You're not gonna get shunned by your friends or family because they're not Jehovah's Witnesses. Compared to Jehovah's Witness children, who's basically all their friends are Jehovah's Witnesses. Maybe not all their family, but you're taught to shun your family if they're not Jehovah's Witnesses. So, and then you have so much pressure put on you to get baptized. Like I said, my parents didn't have that pressure. They had pressure to do other things, like, go to school and things like that, better education and things like that. But Jehovah's Witnesses didn't have that, except my father. He didn't accept the truth. So thank goodness I was able to go to college, and my mother, she really didn't have a problem with me going to college. It's just, it started getting kind of tough with the whole dating scene, because you're not allowed to date anyone that's not a Jehovah's Witness. And here we go with another comparison. My parents and my husband's parents could date whoever they wanted. They didn't have restrictions on who they wanted to date. There's so many depressed single sisters that want to get married, and there's like hardly any brothers available, so they're just single and depressed, and repressed. My parents, who were not Jehovah's Witness children, and neither were my husband's parents, they didn't have that issue. They could date whoever they wanted to, so they didn't have to deal with that struggle either. So they really don't understand how Jehovah's Witness children feel, and they want to get upset when children have these natural desires. They get upset, but wait a minute, let's not forget, you got to do all of this stuff when you were a kid. You got to date and this and that and the other, and then they'll try to downplay it like, oh, it's not all that, you ain't missing out on nothing. Okay, you could tell that to a child that ain't never did nothing, but still, who's really raising your children? Are you raising them, or is the Watchtower raising them? You're so scared, that your children are gonna do something wrong, and you're pushing them to get baptized at such an early age. I was 16. I honestly thought that what I was doing was right. But later on down the line, when I got older, and my mom, she started looking at the organization with a little side eye. She was like, this is kind of different. I never thought that they would be doing things like this. This is what she was thinking. And I think she started waking up without realizing that she was waking up. But Unfortunately, she passed away in 2015, but she was just, she kind of had a side eye as to, as far as like the anointed and things like that. She was like, man, he's kind of young to be one of the anointed. This is kind of strange. I don't know if this is true and this and that and the other. She started having her doubts, but she was afraid. She was like, oh, that's just my imperfect thinking, and they tell you not to lean upon your own understanding and things like that, in the quote unquote truth. But I started just looking at her, and at first when I was dead asleep in the truth, I'm like, oh, Mom, you crazy. That's just, she didn't start. She started, questioning the anointed, and she started questioning the whole JW.org when they started, putting the pins, on everybody's suit, and she was like, man, that's kind of corporate like, don't you think? And I'm like, oh, Ma, you have to just get with the program and da 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 da. And then, later on, she died from diabetes complications. Hopefully I'm not revealing too much information on myself or my parents, because I'm trying to stay incognito, because I'm still a very active Jehovah's Witness. I even still give talks. I still go out in service with my husband and children. I still go to the Kingdom Hall and things like that. But I woke up like in January of 2017, around December 2016, January 2017. I started doing research on Christianity, and I started doing research on other religions, and finally, I mustered up the courage to do research on my own religion, which was Jehovah's Witnesses. And I think I was looking up other religions because I was scared to look at my own. But I'm actually glad I did, and I wish I had did it sooner. So yeah, that's basically what I wanted to talk about. I don't want to go off too much on a tangent. I just wanted to say that it's not fair. Witness children really don't have any experience in anything when it comes to doing quote unquote worldly things like birthday parties and things like that. That's why a lot of them leave the truth and go buck wild, because they ain't used to nothing. They ain't never went through nothing. They ain't never did nothing, so they go buck wild. So that's why some young people go buck wild. But yeah, I didn't wake up until my 30s. So I'm trying to do stuff a little bit more slower. You see people when they figure out. I was looking at XJW Critical Thinkers, one of their older videos, and they were talking about how people, when they find out that the truth is not really the truth, they lose their minds and they want to just leave the truth immediately. Well, the problem with that is, do you have a clientele of friends that are not Jehovah's Witnesses? This is what they were talking about. I'm getting all of this from their channel. And I will post a link to that video. I will post a link to that video in the description, so you can watch that. But yeah, like, you can't just wake up and just... Now, some people can, but for the most part, if all you know is Jehovah's Witnesses, and if you don't have an education, or you don't have a good job, it's going to be very, very hard for you to disassociate yourself or fade or what have you. You have to plan for that stuff, and it may take some years. Like, I know for me, it's gonna take a long, long time for me to actually live the way I want to live. I mean, I've told my husband that, this may not be the truth, but it went in one ear and out the other, and he was like, oh, you're just depressed because your mom passed away. Well, That's not necessarily the case. Yeah, I mean, depression did lead me to start doing research, because I felt like, man, there's got to be more than just the same old thing over and over and over and over and over. How come we're not getting anywhere in this world? How come, and I always had my doubts as well, but I was too afraid to say anything to my mother. I told her maybe about 7 years ago. I started doing, research, because I'm a little bit of a conspiracy theorist. But one thing that I did not believe was that Charles Taze Russell was a Freemason. And Rutherford, I'm not sure about Rutherford. I have to do more research on that. And I immediately got angry when I heard that, and I just clicked off of it. I clicked off of it immediately when I heard that, because I was looking at, just different things. A lot of people have their opinions about, like, the Illuminati and all of that crap. So, well, it's not crap, but, stuff like that. And I was just doing research on that. And Charles Taze Russell all of a sudden just popped up out of nowhere. I'm like, are you serious? So I'm like, wow. And so I felt like I had to tell my mother. I'm like, Ma, I seen on YouTube that Charles Taze Russell is a Freemason. And, we kind of was like, nah, that's just something that they're lying. They're lying, they're lying. That's just information coming from Satan, stuff like that. But actually, if you go to Pennsylvania, you'll see Charles Taze Russell's tombstone is a pyramid with the cross and the crown symbol. So, I mean, hey, I also post a link to that as well. And I also have a video of a aerial view of a Jehovah's Witness property in Denmark. That's the shape of the Eye of Horus. Now, that's a whole different subject there on the Eye of Horus. Some people think it's from Satan. Other people think it's just Egyptian mythology, and it's not. It's mythology. It's not real. So a lot of people have their opinion on that as well. But like I said, I'm going off on a tangent again. If you are a Jehovah's Witness that did not grow up as a Jehovah's Witness child, and you're raising your children, as Jehovah's Witnesses, just take into consideration how they feel. You got to do everything that you wanted to do as a child, but they didn't. So they do feel deprived, but they're probably not going to tell you, because they don't want to disappoint you. And I'm basically a born-in. So like I said, I didn't even go through. I went through kindergarten. That was the only grade I was able to celebrate Halloween, Christmas, and things like that. And first grade all the way up through college, I wasn't able to go to do anything, even at the workplace, because I was still highly indoctrinated up until 8 or 9 months ago when I woke up. That's all I wanted to say, and I hope more and more people will wake up to what the organization does behind closed doors. And if you're having doubts, just do research. Don't just believe things that people tell you and then just accept it. Always dig deeper and search for the real truth about pretty much everything. So, this is Mackie J. Jones. Hopefully I will talk to you soon, and you have a great day.